Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network, presented to you by BetMGM. My name is Michael Leboff. Joining me in just a second is my co-host, Nick Martin. In this episode, we will go over the upcoming game threes, which will be on Friday and Saturday, and maybe give some thoughts on kind of just some strategies to leave you with for Sunday, because we won't be recording over the weekend, and then we will catch up with you again with a recording on Sunday night for Monday morning. With that out of the way, though, let's get right to it. We'll start as we have the past two episodes with the Hurricanes and Islanders. The series shifts back to Long Island with the Canes up 2-0, and game three lined as a straight pick 'em over unders once again a 5.5 with juice on the under. I think most people would agree that the fair score line coming back to Long Island here would probably be 1-1. But that's not how it works in this sport. Sometimes just you don't get any of the breaks. The Islanders have really struggled to get one in this series so far. I did like what I saw out of them basically from the middle of the first period of game one on through game two. They've played well. They've hung with the Hurricanes. They've lost two one-goal games, one in overtime, dubiously, and the other one where they didn't allow a 5-on-5 goal. So everything's pointing to the Islanders, but it's also just tells you that, this Carolina Hurricanes team is they're masters at just gumming things up, sticking around, and just could do that here on the road. So I'll be at the game. I would say that if I had to make a bet here, it would be on the Islanders, and almost would think if you do like the Islanders in game three to maybe take a peek at the series price for a comeback, but because with margins like this, they're so thin. If the Islanders catch the next two breaks or something, we could be looking at a completely different series. So those are my thoughts here, but I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I played the second I saw plus 100 on this game, I jumped in because I think it's going to be at worst a coin flip for the Isles, but I like the way it's setting up. It's hard to go down three. I think they've got a legitimate home ice advantage, as you know, which I don't typically rate too much, but Carolina's kind of shown that they're better at home under Rod. I think the same with the Isles. With Teravainen out, their scoring's getting, pretty thin. So for me, it's a bit of a spot thing. It's a bit of a feel thing, but I think with what they showed in the first two games, I do like their chances a lot here, and I would still play it at -110, just a little smaller.
The Bruins and Panthers split in Boston. Patrice Bergeron. Does anybody know if he traveled? Jim Montgomery said they don't know if he doesn't know yet if Bergeron was going to travel with the team. He skated this morning, and then they flew down to Florida, and I guess nobody found out if he was traveling with the team. I'm assuming he's out. Bruins -155 for game three. Panthers +135. Over under 6. I guess it's like the question here is the Panthers have been really good, but is just at some point Alex Lyon going to really struggle? I mean, he showed some signs of it in game one, but then rebounded with a decent game two showing, and Linus Ullmark struggled in goal for the Bruins. But I would have liked a bigger number on Florida if I was going to play him. I'm not going to, but like I I think I think an over, like a Bruins team total over some Bruins goal scorers would be interesting here, because at some point Lions gotta fall off.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, he looks pretty loud in his net. He's fairly awkward. I think that maybe some of the Bruins' grade A chances are getting underrated a little bit, but it's been crazy through this series because I thought game one, we were kind of making the case it was probably 50-50, and then that the Bruins have their obvious goaltending edge, which is always going to stand. And that kind of made them made the Panthers a little live in game two, I guess. Well, the Panthers played a lot better in game two, I thought. Um, and I know in a small sample, analytics aren't that much, but they now own 62% of the expected goals in this series, which is pretty insane because even if you're going to say like some of those Bruins 2-on-1s and stuff were maybe a little underrated by that data, that is still like a crazy mark. And I thought it kind of showed that way. And even still, the Panthers had the 2 breakaways, the 2-on-1, that weird Lusterainen play where he was kind of all alone out front for a while. So it's looked like they're pretty live. I'm almost a little mad where like the sportsbooks are already moving the prices so much. It seems like they're kind of respecting the way the games have gone, I think. So I don't really have much on this game 3 because it seems like one where
Yep.
I don't know, maybe you're just trying to guess like if Boston's
And that's
gonna
what I was doing. I'm
take it
thinking
to
like
another level.
a guessing like that at some point, if Lion's just going to be overrated at some point by the market, and hopefully when the floodgates open, they open big, and that's why I like
Right.
a
And that does look kind of like where I'd say is probably a better bet, that the goals will come
yeah.
and
So
that
however you want to do
whether or
that,
not
if
they'll win or lose.
yeah,
Yeah, because I
it's
think Florida offensively is looking pretty good. They're giving them
mhm,
some problems. And obviously the Bergeron loss sucks, but
yeah.
yeah, I think that's a decent angle for sure.
Stars and Wild are split too. Wild won game 1, double overtime on the back of Philip Gustafson, who didn't play in game 2. They went with Marc-Andre Fleury. He didn't play all that well. The Stars were really good though. I mean, part of it was on Fleury, but the Stars were full marks for that win. Dallas is a -115 favorite on the road in Minnesota. The over/under is 5.5. You and I are going to probably be on the both sides, the same side here, which is Dallas, even as a slight road favorite.
Yeah, I think what I'm gonna do is just a little play on Dallas in game 3, see how it goes, and then if maybe do another little playing game 4 or slightly bigger play. Because I think they'll get a split. It seems like they're just maybe about to take this series over. The Wild center depth has become quite an issue, and it just seems like it's gonna be hard for them to fully control the Stars at even strength with really what they have down the middle. So I think it's a good play looking at the Stars to win in this one. And yeah, you kind of touched on it. I don't think the result in game 2 would have been different with Fleury out of the net, but it was kind of a disastrous start. Obviously, we know Gustafsson starting this game. I think everyone was pretty puzzled with that one. And yeah.
Uh, Edmonton and Los Angeles also split. In Edmonton, the Oilers blew another 2-goal lead in game 2, but were able to rescue themselves from what would have been an absolute disaster with a victory in game 2. They're -140 on the road. Kings +120. The over/under is 6.5. Leon Draisaitl had another monster game, and I think it's almost worth just grabbing a little 30-1 on him to win the Conn Smythe, because even if like McDavid's going to catch up to him at some point if the or come close to it, but he's already off to such a good start. He's got a 4-point head start on McDavid that if he continues to kind of produce, and obviously if McDavid scores a lot of times, it's going to be more production for Draisaitl, more points in his pocket. So I couldn't keep looking at it. So I think a 30-1 on him to win the Conn Smythe. Otherwise, we said Oilers before game 2, Oilers to win the series. I think that will probably stand for me here, but I would be closer on Edmonton anyways.
Yeah, I think so. I think at worst they'll probably come out of LA with one game. The price looked about fair to me. I still think the Kings are a really good team. So yeah, I really didn't have much on this. And then if I were to add, I think I'd probably be considering what I have in my pocket. I have the Oilers Western Conference, and that's looking like enough because it's kind of going to be a bit of a war, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird one with the way things have shaken out. I think there's a couple teams, like it's been 2 games, so it's hard to say anything. But of the teams that have people's tongues wagging, like, oh, this team looks good through the 2. I think a lot of people are starting to circle Dallas, so which is interesting. The Leafs and Lightning split in Toronto. Both games were gong shows. And I don't think you could have we didn't like learn all that much from anything new, I don't think, from either game, because there was so little 5-on-5 time that mattered, because the Lightning raced off to a 3-0 lead in the first period, throws the game state all off. Then the Leafs do it in the second game. And there's just power plays and penalties and uh, all sorts of stuff going on. So, but what we do know is that the Lightning are banged up. Victor Hedman didn't play game 2. Eric Chernak, I would assume, is probably done for at least the next 2 games. Michael Eyssimont, who I thought was pretty good in that little cameo he
He's
had in
just
game 1.
good.
Yeah, he's a good
He's
player.
legitimately
Yeah.
just good. I was hoping, like, I honestly think he's a better player than Jeannot. I like think this is a lot worse than I mean, it's a bottom 6 guy, so it's not going to change this series the way it's going. But like, yeah, I really was wondering like if it would work out where Jeannot would steal his spot. I was happy about that as someone who's sitting here hoping that my Leafs tickets are going to be live, because I really think Eysimont's an underrated player.
Yeah, he is. And yeah, so he's out Chernak and Hedman. We should say Eyssimont and Chernak because it was head injury. Like we have no idea, but assuming that they'll probably
His
at
seems
least
pretty bad, I think. I guess who knows?
yeah, you just don't know. If and then
Hedman seems much
nobody
more
knows
day to day.
what even happened to him. Nobody even knows. Like he just left the game. Cooper said he was surprised. And you wonder if they thought since they won game 1, we'll just sit on him, rest him, and at worst you go back to Tampa with the split. And but they're gonna need him. I didn't even think like the Tampa's defense, their blue line was a huge issue tonight. It was just it was a disastrous game. It just went off script. I like Radish. Ian Cole is whatever, and Sergachev's a beast. But
Yeah, Ian Cole's maybe a little worse than whatever. But
hey, did you see
we'll
him dang?
see.
How about the dangle though?
Yeah, yeah. I know
He's
that's the thing is like I don't think Samsonov really like quelled the concerns. He just, I mean, they're up 3-0 so early, and he just kind of made the saves he was supposed to, I guess. I still think like that's a scary thing for me in the games that get meaningful, because they're not
yeah.
going to be able to just pour it on and steal them.
So
So
I like the under here. I'm assuming that Tampa is going to come out with and this one is kind of based on Hedman playing. I would say if they can't get him in the lineup, we could see just another absolute gong show. But I would assume Tampa's going to want to just keep this game on script and slow it down and muck it up and get the Cirelli line out against Matthews, and John Cooper is going to try to cook up whatever. And also it's just we've seen 19 goals, 21 power plays, a suspension. I
yeah,
think there's
you'd
going to
think
be a
the
lot.
power plays slow down.
Yeah, the power play should probably slow down. The Leafs I think are cooking at 40%. The Lightning are like 36.7% too. So even if they don't slow down, at some point someone's gonna get a kill or two. So I kind of like the under. I don't think it's a bad game to bet to go to overtime either.
Yeah, I think this one's gonna end up being a lot closer. I'm kind of leaning Leafs, but just not enough where I want to play it. And originally, I thought this was gonna be a series where the under was a great play. I was on it in game 1, which was an absolute nightmare. Just like last year, I thought that we'd kind of see them tighten up, but I don't know. I don't know if I want to go to it. It just feels to me like there's a lot of avenues. Like I think the Leafs, they've got all their big guns going, and I like that. And I think it's still going to be tough whether Hedman plays or not. He's obviously hurt fairly bad, I'd say. And to me, it just seems like a lot. Both power plays are clicking. I don't trust Samsonov. I see the narrative because it's playoff hockey and they're two teams that have like these cores have proven they can defend, but I'm like scared to go back to that well for
Yeah,
now. These games are
I'm
just
expecting. So
coming off
my
the
thinking
rails.
here
And then the
is
other thing I like is that sometimes you can catch pretty good live unders. Like
yeah,
I find a lot of the time that boat you don't miss it too badly if you're like kind of thinking that. Um, I mean, I guess you can if it goes like some of the Islanders Canes games, but it feels like one where you could probably still like get there on that play if you want to see how it goes and then jump in.
the the last thing like I'd add about that is just I we haven't seen Vasilevsky play to his powers yet.
Yeah, that first Marner goal really surprised me because it didn't
Yeah,
really, even on like replay, it seemed like it should have been that easy. I don't know if he's kind of surprised. It was kind of like a almost like uncharacteristic shot early in the
yeah.
power play possession for Marner, but it was kind of surprising to me.
And we've seen it from him in series past where it just, then all of a sudden he clicks. So we'll see. If people keep talking about the switch, Tampa Bay Lightning switch, they've got some mythical switch somewhere in their locker room. And
I loved Vasilevsky staying in that game to keep that streak alive too.
yeah, he's a legend.
Yeah.
Um, Devils and Rangers now, and boy, howdy.
Oh my.
Devils plus 115, Rangers minus 135, over under 5.5. If you were a Devils backer, if you're a Devils fan, you must be so frustrated with how this is coming out because the game plan was there for you, right? You're the better 5-on-5 team. You should be able to, if you could get things to stay at 5-on-5 and get into some rhythm up and down the ice at 5-on-5, you can get the Rangers out of the game and take advantage of everything that you do well. And instead, the Devils have handed over 10 power plays to the Rangers. The Rangers scored on 4 of them. Uh, and I think even that kind of underrates what the Rangers did because they scored right after one tonight too. And they've had a couple like garbage time power plays where it didn't really matter. So like the meaningful ones they've just been clicking on. And the Devils just continue to shoot themselves in the foot. You could point to the Devils being a great road team this year if you're looking for some solace. And if you're a Devils fan, I don't blame you for doing this and just jumping through hoops to get there. Uh, it's just really hard to imagine after watching the first 2 games. It's really hard to just find the paths for the Devils to get back into this one. And uh, they, it's such a cliche to like say it, and sometimes I think people underrate this element because how some like hockey media members, pundits, narrative spinners talk about like experienced teams and guys like teams like the Lightning and their experience or whatever. But it does look like the Devils are just
Yeah.
completely
But my
overwhelmed.
beef with that is that there's all sorts of teams that come out and play like shit. And this happens to be them. The Kraken are playing unreal as a team. Like they're playing unreal team hockey when you consider the discretion and talent. And to me, it's just one of those things where it's a
Yeah,
sweet narrative when it works. And
but
it's
when you look at that
something you
roster,
can,
the Kraken roster, they've got plenty of people who've kind of been through the playoff ringer.
yeah, I
Like
suppose, but
like the
I just
Devils,
feel
I
like
think
it's
I
one
think
of
the
those
Devils
things.
are like an actual version of the team that everyone pictures when
Yeah.
this
But I
narrative
mean,
pops
there's
up.
so many. Like you could sit here and go back and forth all day with just like teams that didn't have many. And they're all gonna have a couple guys. Every team's got 20
Yeah, I
guys
mean
and
they've got
a couple
Palat, they've
veterans.
got Dougie Hamilton, like they've got guys,
Yeah.
but like I
Oh,
think when
don't
you
get me
think
started on Dougie. Holy, he is a joke. Like as someone who's sitting here hoping the Devils will make this a series, like I don't think there's a guy that I disagree with the analytics more on than Hamilton in moments that matter. Because he's just lost. He's so soft. Like it feels like he's been one of the biggest problems in this series. Um,
yeah,
he needs to figure it out. And Siegenthaler is going to come back in. I think. I don't really know how they arrived at that decision. That seemed like a pretty bizarre one. And it's funny because I've talked entering the
when I saw
series. I thought it was possible that Hughes would upgrade the third pairing and some of the guys that are not good getting minutes. I didn't think that Siegenthaler coming out was even on the horizon
I
of
know
possibilities because he's
it's
so far from what I would think is the problem on that team. It was
it's
just one of those ones that was just shocking when I
that
heard.
and the Gustafson decision like just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and even that one though, like at least Fleury was really good down the stretch. They'd been doing it as a tandem. I don't
Yeah,
agree with it, but it was like there was a lane. I have no idea what the Siegenthaler thinking was watching that game one, where I thought he was fine. He was better than probably half his team.
yeah. I don't know, maybe he's
And
sick or something, but
yeah,
that made no sense if it's
it just
bizarre. And I was with you. I
everything
thought
that's
like they put Hughes in for Ball, and that was be it, not Brendan Smith in for Siegenthaler. And then yeah, I don't even want to get into it
everything
because
that could
it's
go
just
wrong has for the Devils, and it just seems Like they've really just not played
Everything
their
that's
way.
gone
And
wrong for
credit to
Bev.
New York, they've done so much well. And you know, I feel like I'm almost smart and a complete idiot because I thought the Devils were going to give them a really good series, which was a horrible take. I thought that the Rangers power play was due to go off, and that I couldn't believe that unit wasn't going to be legitimately great.
Yeah.
And that looks like it could be something that carries them to a good run.
I'm the one bet regret that I have is not going harder on that right now, at least. I mean, who knows how it ends up, but I thought for sure that this series was not going to go long because just
Yeah, I think that is gonna yeah, now that looks like a pretty smart take because feels like even if the Devils pull it together, they're not taking both in New York.
and
I feel like you're getting a if they play better, they'll probably get a split.
so and this is part of the reason why I think like so the Islanders are down 2-0 in the series and the Devils are down 2-0 in the series. And the big difference here is like for the Islanders to come back, they don't they don't only have to outplay their opponent, which feasibly could happen. It could feasibly happen for the Devils, but they also have to beat a much lesser goalie. So like even if the Devils just tilt the ice on Saturday night and pump 48 shots to Igor Shesterkin, like there's a decent chance that it doesn't matter. Whereas
Oh,
like
for sure.
for the Islanders, I think that even though they're a worse team than the Devils by stretches, uh, if they do generally play to an even game with Carolina, the goaltending advantage should show up, and it should continue to show up throughout as the series gets longer and longer. So, uh, yeah, I mean, who knows? The NHL, the Stanley Cup
Yeah.
playoffs are not so.
Yeah, there's a lot of randomness to it
If
for sure.
if you want to
But
lean into that, but
I mean,
and
yeah, I agree. And from what we've seen from like the Isles, it seems like a fair argument to think they can make it a 50-50 game where they play pretty sharp and give Sorokin a good chance and hang in there. Whereas like the Devils don't look like they're
no,
showing much of that at all. And then you've got the fact with how the Rangers power play looks, the Devils power play has looked pretty horrible. And that's just a lot of scary things.
yeah. All right, Avs and Kraken now, which was wrapping up while we were getting onto the microphone, and uh, they do have a line out. Let me start that again. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, game 3 between the Avalanche and Kraken. Avs took game 2. It's a wild one. 3-2 for Colorado. They'll now travel to Seattle as a -155 favorite for game 3. Kraken +135 over under. Here is 6. I I don't mind a bet on the over here because I think that the way that these games have kind of shaken out,
Yeah,
they
I
should just
really
be
agree.
flying over.
Well, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it is going to be really good play. I thought tonight's game easily could have gotten a
Could
higher
have been seven
total.
six.
Georgiev looks pretty shaky, and
He did come.
Grubauer's looking
He
pretty good. But
Georgiev
he made
was
some
really
huge
bad.
saves.
Yeah, and then all
Yeah,
of a sudden clicked into
and like
gear.
credit to
Yeah,
the Kraken, they still had some good chances. Like Colorado tilted the ice once I got down 2-0 and got it tied. But the Kraken had some chances going the other way. Like there was the 3-on-1 that ended with the Eberle shot, and Georgiev came up with a huge save there. So I agree. I think, and Seattle's not really trying to like sit back and play scared or like, just try to hang around as like a huge underdog. Like they're attacking like they were in the regular season and looking fairly dangerous. So I agree. I think they're due for a game where both teams get to 3 or 4, and
yeah.
yeah, I like it. I fully agree. I think there's a good chance both
You've been
teams put up
writing up
some
same
points.
game parlays on NationalNetwork.com for particular games, and this is one where I think like a lotto ticket bet could
That
be
would
interesting
yeah, for sure. I
because
agree.
I
And
just think there's going to be pucks
and
bouncing back and forth.
yeah, and everyone's gonna want to see where McKinnon's shots
Yeah.
open because they're just like it seemed pretty free today because it was 4.5 -130. I think it was the kind of game where like you see how easy it hit, and everyone's been on this angle for 2 straight playoffs. He finished at 8. I almost wish he didn't hit 8 because it's the kind of thing where like I think that leads to more and more adjustment when guys are sailing over. But I don't know. It seems like the Kraken are going to make the games close, and then they're just going to keep skating McKinnon more and more. And that seemed like part of what turned this game was, without fully diving into the usage, it felt like in the third, the Avs had their top six and Taves and Makar out the whole time. And it was probably just in part because they're all noticeable. But it seems like they're going to have to keep leaning on them and keep leaning on them. And on top of that, Eller took a fairly bad fall. I could definitely see him being out for this game. He looked pretty hurt. So we'll see that, because he's kind of actually, I mean, I don't personally rate Eller as well as the analytics do, but he's actually been one of the better pieces in their bottom six, which is shocking to me watching him in Washington this year. But yeah, I think that's something to watch here, where it seems like the Kraken have a pretty firm edge down the lineup right now.
All right. We will wrap with Knights and Jets, which is still ongoing as we record. Vegas up 3-2. I think we have a pretty good idea of how these teams will match up, and it's tight. That's really it. And I think Hellebuck still will be the difference. If it goes back to Winnipeg 1-1, I don't think a bet on Winnipeg to win the series is a bad idea. That's how it looks right now. But I think we just both will remain pretty bullish on the Jets, although the Knights did step up here, expectedly so.
Yeah, they stepped up. I still think this is probably a game where I definitely can live with. It looks like it's going to lose, but taking the Jets at plus 145, and I'll want to see where they open in this game. Like, I'm thinking probably pick would be my guess, but we'll see how much they move it and respect Vegas performance here. I just think if the games are going to be this closely played, eventually the Hellebuck is just going to pay off more. And Brossoit had a pretty good game tonight. He held them in it early. So I'm kind of still riding that narrative that there is a decent edge there in goal, even though it hasn't entirely played out that way. And I think the Jets are playing quite well. So I agree. I'll be probably leaning towards trying to find some way to play them in the next two games and hoping the prices are pretty reasonable.
All right, there you have it. Another episode of Line Change in the books. You can look for us again on Monday morning as we get you set up for the business end of round one. For Nick Martin, I'm Michael Leapoff. Thank you to our sponsors, BetMGM, and we will see you next week.